Today, we take care of our Mini Cooper S's leaky valve cover. Welcome back to the Auto Obsessive Garage, friends. Chadwick with you again for another installment of Project Mini Green Bean. That's our 2005 Mini Cooper S. Today, guys, we're going to take care of the only real leak on the car, a nasty valve cover leak. These things tend to develop at the rear part of the engine, which makes it very hard to spot unless you just get the right angle in the engine bay and you can see a little bit of glistening oil. So we're going to take care of that because I am sick of this engine being covered in oil on the backside and underneath. So that's what we're going to be up to today. Let's get in the garage and get a little dirty. Welcome to our 2005 Mini Cooper S engine bay. We're going to be doing a little bit of work under here. We're going to be doing that valve cover gasket, which we saw leaking in the back, which is pretty common on these, especially at 86,000 miles. More importantly, at the year we are at, so 18-year-old car. Definitely need to replace that. To access your valve cover gasket, you need to pull the intercooler, this top mount, out of the way. Pretty straightforward. I'll show you guys how to do that. We're also doing the coil pack. We're also doing the plugs, wires, the whole, basically all this ignition stuff right here is going to be replaced. So good time to do that. Obviously, air filter is going to also be done, and this intake air hose, which has a huge crack right there, and I can rip that rubber right apart with my hand, which is fantastic. So that's going to be replaced as well. So first things first, we got to take this off. Pretty straightforward. Everything on here is a T30 Torx bit. So we're going to take all those off, pull this off, and I'll show you guys how to get the intercooler off. Then we'll have access. A couple more things need to be removed, but then we'll have access generally to the 8mm bolts that hold the valve cover on. Now the bolts holding your coil pack on are 10mm. So you're going to need an 8, a 10, and a T30 to do this job. You're going to need some pliers and screwdrivers to take off various air hoses. You have a PCV hose over here, right under the Mini logo, and then near where the oil is put into the engine, there's another breather hose that you need to pull off. So we'll be taking all that off and get the top of this off. Intercooler first. What we're going to do is loosen these inner brackets. There's a little rubber coupling or plastic hose here that connects the intercooler end pipes. So we're going to just do these, loosen these front ones. We're going to pull those up ultimately. And then you've got these brackets here where you can kind of undo both of those and remove the whole thing if you want. But I like to just loosen this one here, take this one off completely, slide them out of the way, and we'll be able to move that intercooler just fine, because we just need to hit the valve cover bolts that are right there. So let's loosen these up first. Again, T30 Torx, gotta love that they kept that theme alive. In case you're wondering, these are different lengths, so you can't mix them up. These little brackets are 8mm. Basically, you got to kind of pull this back at the same time as you pushing the intercooler to the left. Well, it's technically the right side, but the passenger side of the vehicle. And then we're going to angle it out and up like that. There we go. Nice and easy. But there's our top mount intercooler from our Mini Cooper S. Now your next obstacle is going to be these two aluminum, I guess they're ears, that kind of cover up the valve cover bolts. Kind of get in the way from you removing that valve cover. So we got to make sure we pull those bad boys out. To do so, it's 8mm bolts. Surprise, surprise. You have 2 on this one, 3 on this one. And then we'll go ahead, lift those out of the way. That's that passenger side one removed. Again, just put the bolts back through. Makes installation that much easier. Now this guy's a little trickier. You got 3 on this side. 1, 2, you can see there's actually a third one underneath you kind of got to feel to get. It's time to break out your really cute, seldom used flex section for your 1/4 inch ratchet. Gotta love something like that. Work it down onto that bolt. All right. And that ear pulls out again, keep your bolts right in there. We're gonna go ahead and pull the coil pack. A lot of people, you won't be doing that if you need to do the valve cover gasket. You can actually disconnect everything and leave it on. But we are doing everything, the coil pack, the wires, and the plugs. So it's time to pull this unit off. So to disconnect the coil pack, there's a little red, you can see a little red kind of tab on this bracket. You can actually push that through. I like to do it with carefully with a screwdriver. Do a little jiggle lube to get it off while you're pitching down. A little plastic clip down there, it feels like. Slide it off that. Another little one right there. Get your little connector for your coil pack out of the way. Real easy on this mini engine. 1, 2, 3, 4, your cylinder numbers. So that is pretty straightforward. But this time we'll go ahead and, God, this is all original. Wild. Okay, we're gonna pull these boots off of the spark plugs. Pull them straight up. We're replacing it all anyway, so be a little rough if you want. Plugs look pretty decent down there, so I'm kind of curious to see what the condition when I get them out. Now to get the actual coil pack off, super easy. 4 10mm bolts. There's our coil pack removed from our Cooper S. So we got the PCV we need to do here, that breather hose still. We got some wires clamped over here that we just need to pop up to get that access. The PCV on this vehicle is plastic, I believe, so you want to be really careful taking this hose off here. I like to pinch with some 45-degree pliers, kind of twist it back and forth. Boom, perfect. Nice and easy. Nice. Make sure your hose is still pliable. If your hose is rock hard and plastic on your PCV, it's time to replace that hose. It's only a matter of time before it will crack and fail. So make sure that you're good to go on that. So you want it to be kind of pliable, squishy a little bit. This breather hose hasn't been off in a while. You're gonna have to fight her a little bit, but she'll eventually come. There we go. Tuck that out of the way here. Time to remove all our little 8mm bolts and nuts around the valve cover. They can get a bit crusty, especially if you're in a region with weather, but I still see a fair amount of crust on some of them, so just be easy. If it's not going, put a little PV blaster, let it soak. Some kind of penetrating oil. You do not want to force 8mm bolts. You don't want to have one of these breaking off inside. There we go, nice and easy. Pour straight up. Mini Cooper S valve cover removed. Now we're looking at our valve train for the first time, and holy cow, that is clean. I'm used to working on cars with 150, 200,000 miles. This car only has 86, but boy, whoo! I'll take you guys in for a close look. There's your timing chain, and that looks to be in good health as well. Everything looks lubed, oiled correctly, but boy, no discoloring. You know, it'll get that kind of gold tint over time, but that is looking super fresh. Now, if you look on the back of the valve cover, you'll see on the lip there some oil, some debris. That is where we had our leak. So it tends to leak in the back there because the engine's at a little bit of an angle, and it's hard to see. You can barely catch a little glimpse of it, and I saw it when I inspected the car. So it's new valve cover time. But boy, look at that valve train. We've got our Mini Cooper S valve cover removed, and it is completely dirty, and that's not going to fly. So let's clean it up before we remove the old valve cover gasket. All right, with that cleaned up valve cover, let's go ahead and pull off these gaskets. So we'll flip it over. You're going to want to use some kind of prying tool. Don't go too deep and damage the mating surface. There shouldn't be any RTV on these valve cover gaskets. Sometimes people do that, so you might have to remove that if that's the case. But let's go ahead and just pull this off. Sometimes people skip doing these, and I'm not a fan of that because that oil can get down in those spark plug wells, and that is not a good time. So obviously if you order a kit, and this is the kit I ordered a Victor Reigns full valve cover gasket kit, which has the valve cover obviously, and then also has the 4 spark plug well gaskets as well. So we'll go ahead and pull the old ones out. I just got the first spark plug gasket out, and you can see here, it is hard as a rock. Listen to this. It's like plastic on the inside, just from hardening over time, and then on the outside it's hard as plastic. On the inside it's really pliable and rips and separates. So I found the best way to do this, instead of trying to pry and definitely risking the damage of your valve cover, just get a very aggressive pair of pliers. I love these Van pliers. These things can just bite anything. So I try to grab, sometimes you gotta rip out this interior, and I do so just by twisting, pulling it out like so. Discard that to the side. Now you can grab on the outer lip, make sure you're grabbing that and not your gasket. And now you're gonna just simply twist and pull, and sometimes it won't get the whole thing out. You can just move to another section. And that first, there we go. And that at first you don't get it, just move over to a place you haven't gripped yet, pull it out, and that's how you do it. All 4 of them mangled and removed. Time to clean up the surface a little bit, no RTV, and then we're gonna get our new gasket ready to go on. Now it's time to press our new spark plug gaskets in, these little O-rings that protect the spark plugs from getting soaked in oil. They go with this hollow part towards the top of the valve cover, so you'll just see this part here when you're pressing it in. And there we go, we have our 4 O-rings in. Time to place our valve cover in. And you want to kind of push the valve cover gasket down into the valve cover. And that's going to help it stay on there. Okay, I'm super happy with our fitment. We've got all our spark plug gaskets in to protect those, and the valve cover gasket around the perimeter is in too. Time to start putting this back together. Looking real good. Happy with the fitment. It's time to drop the valve cover back into the car with the valve cover gasket in place. Now I put all the bolts back in the correct order where they should be. Now you have the long ones that are kind of stud style. They're going to go on the right side of the valve cover, and this one in here, the second in from the back on the right, also gets one. You also have one over here on the left side in the front, because that's where that clip goes for all those wire holders. So in case you get stuck, that's the easy way out. Make sure all your wires are out of the way. Nothing's going to get caught when you try to slide this back in. Now we're going to go ahead and tighten down, work your way out from the inside to the outside. And then we'll go ahead and start putting all our accessories back in. With the valve cover installed, double check all your bolts, make sure they're all snug down. At that time, you can go ahead and put your breather hose back on, PCV hose back on, all your little clips and wires and everything that you need to do, the ears, the intercooler. You can do all that at this time. But we have more work to do, so this is not the end of the road for us. But if you're just doing valve cover, go ahead and put it back together.